I'm Lisa from Lori's Country Cottage. Welcome to How Tuesday. Today, I'm going to show you how to use the simply slotted trimmers and diagonal seam tape to save time making half square triangles and other blocks with diagonal seams. All right, here is the diagonal seam tape. It comes on a roll just like washi tape does and peels off. You can tear it, but I prefer to cut it. One of the most common questions asked online is, how do you make sure it's straight? Well, yes, that's a bit of a pickle, because if I lay my ruler down and I create a straight line, I can't put tape on top. So here's how I did mine. I had the tape off. I used my friction marker and I made a little mark right at the end of my acrylic table, and you could do that on the bed of your sewing machine as well. Then I tore off a length of the washi tape. It was longer than I needed, and I did this. I lined up the red line with the yellow line on my table, and I pulled it forward and then lined it up with my needle. Once I was done doing that, I took my ruler, lined it up with my needle in the center position with the red tape, and made sure it was a straight line. And it was. So now I know I have a straight line from my needle to the mark I made on the table. I also have a ruler on my acrylic table, and that helped to straighten it out too. So here's how diagonal seam tape works. It has 3 lines. A red line in the middle, that's your needle line. And then 2 black lines, which are 1/4 inch on either side of that red line. Now normally when we're making flying geese or half square triangles, we would have to take all of our squares and draw a diagonal line, and then we would stitch on that line. But with the diagonal seam tape, you can save the step of drawing that line. So what I'm going to do is take my point, the corner, line it up with my needle, and then I'm going to take this point and put it on that red line. Now I have a straight line. And I can just start to stitch, making sure it's straight. There we go. And now I'm just following that point and making sure it stays lined up there, and I have a lovely straight line. It also works if you're going to pop a corner. So we do this same way. We would put a diagonal line with a pencil on that square, but I can save that step by lining that up with my needle and then lining this point up again with that red line. And then I can chain stitch and have a perfectly straight line. Now you have some options with half square triangles. The most common method for half square triangles is to draw that center line and then stitch a 1/4 inch on each side. Some people even draw all 3 lines or just the 2 1/4 inch lines. But what you need to do for this, if I put my point on the black line and the black line, I'll be stitching on the red line, which is a 1/4 inch away. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to line up my point on the black line, watch this point here on the black line, and stitch. I'm going to do it once more because I want to show you that there are 2 ways to do your second line. So again, same method. My point is on the 1/4, my point is on the 1/4, and I'm just going to chain stitch that with my other half square triangle. And now I'm stitching a 1/4 inch away from that diagonal. All right, I'm going to cut those apart, and so easy for chain stitching, I could just keep going making half square triangles. So now I have options for my second line. I can do the exact same thing. So I'm going to turn my block, line up my 1/4 inch, my point on that 1/4 inch black line, and now when I stitch, I'll be stitching on a 1/4 inch away, again from that diagonal. The other option is to leave the square how you sewed it. So we did this and stitched this line. Now I could put my point on this black line and this black line, and again, when I stitch, I'm a 1/4 inch from that diagonal. It kind of depends how your brain works. Some people like to be repetitive, some people will be more linear and want to keep the block in the same direction. So now all I do with these is go in and cut down the middle, and I have the start of my half square triangles. Now let's go to my cutting table and I will show you how those simply slotted trimmers work. All right, let's look at Clearly Perfect Slotted Trimmers by Carrie Carr for New Leaf Stitches. What you get is a set of 2 rulers so that you can cut sizes in full inches or 1/2 inch increments. This set will do you 11 different sizes. Slotted trimmers also come in 2 more individual rulers for making larger half square triangles and larger squares. So trimmer A is our 1/2 inch cut size. Trimmer B is full inch cut size. Now, mostly for quilting, we are cutting, including our seam allowances. So this is the one that I use most often, the 1/2 inch increments. You get full instructions on the back of the ruler. Plus, I really like that the instructions are printed right on the ruler, just to remind you that this is your cut size. So I've taken my half square triangles. Don't open them, don't press them, leave them like you just took them off the machine. And here's how the slotted trimmers work. It works best for me to have my triangle a little bit twisted clockwise as opposed to straight up and down, so that we can do all the cuts at once. Following your pattern, if it says to make a 2.5 inch unfinished half square triangle, I'm going to find the 2.5 inch dotted line, so it's dotted like your thread, so that is the stitching line. So I'm lining the dotted line with my stitching line. I don't care if this edge here is cut straight, I'm not lining that up, I'm lining up my stitches. But to get the biggest half square triangle I can get a 3.5 inch unfinished half square triangle. And all you have to do, just like trimming any other block, is to go up one side and down the other. Now don't move your ruler because you have 2 more cuts to make. These little slots, which make this ruler so unique, remove the dog ears from your half square triangles. So that saves you a step later on. Now those little dog ears are off, and we can open our triangle, and there's our half square triangle. So let me show you that again. Maybe I'll use a smaller one. So here it is again. I'm using the dashed line for a cut size 2.5 inch. So lining the dashed line with my stitching, doesn't matter what this does, my stitching line is straight. So again, up one side, down the other, don't move your ruler, and then just cut into those dog ears on either side. There they are, and there are my half square triangles. Now, this ruler has other things it can do as well. If you're doing blocks that have additional diagonal lines, the ruler has diagonal lines and square lines to help you. But it can also be used if you're using the tube method for doing half square triangles. So you can make an entire tube, two fabrics stitched together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then use your slotted trimmer, line it up. I'm going to use the 5.5 inch stitching line. Cut up one side, down the other, cut off my dog ear here and my dog ear here, and there's my first half square triangle. And then I would turn my ruler and do the same thing on the other side. Find my stitching line, line it up, make my cut, and cut my other two cuts. And that's often called the strip tube method of half square triangles. There we go. So those are the clearly perfect slotted trimmers, the set with trimmer A and B for making full inch and 1/2 inch half square triangles. Thanks for joining me for How Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Simply Slotted Trimmer and diagonal seam tape, and I hope you'll try them to help you save time when you're building your quilting blocks.